Bama, Tennessee, two of the greatest college football traditions of all time. Yeah, believe it or not. I know Alabama probably number one, but Tennessee's in the top 10 as well. And we had another edition of the third Saturday and October showdown on Saturday, and we're still talking about it here on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. We want you to hear from you guys. We want you to be a part of it. We're looking for some guys that can really shine, or gals, or whoever that can make a play in a big game. And if you are that person, here's how you join our roster. All right, I'm not Coach Saban giving speeches. I'm just a guy that sits on here and talks about sports. I'm Mick Gillispie. That's Chad Anderson moving his microphone there. Okay, let's get it comfortable. And let's talk about this one, Chad. I'm going to put this on the screen here. Alabama with another win in this rivalry. And this game was interesting. I think it ranks up there as far as, one of the better ones that we've had. Where do you think this one ranks? And, after that 34-20 win, the score doesn't really tell you the intensity of this game. It was a game of two halves. Tennessee had a big lead, and then Alabama overcame that. It was like the biggest comeback Alabama's had at Bryant-Denny Stadium in like 25 years. And it's a classic in this rivalry.
Yeah, I look back. I remember watching Alabama and Tennessee starting around 91, 92. That's when the memories start to come into play for me. So, Alabama kept Peyton Manning out of the end zone in 1994. And then after that, Tennessee went on a run. Because in 95 was Peyton directing the band at Legion Field. Mm-hmm. And then, just things weren't very good for Alabama. I remember watching Jay Graham in 96 bust the long run in Knoxville. 99 was such a letdown because Alabama was having that special year beating Florida in the Swamp. So I will say, Mick, for me personally, and the games that I've been a part of, the 0-2 game, for me, it is a big deal because that ended the streak from the other side. And that one to me was just monkey off the back. And it was just an ass kicking, that was Tyler Watts up in Knoxville, Gerald Dixon with the fumble recovery to kick things off with a touchdown. So that one to me was a big one. The 09 games like 09, for example, they were great wins, right? Because it got you a national championship, but it shouldn't have ever been 12-10. So I don't really put it up there, if you're ranking this game. Mm-hmm. I also think 07 and 08 were big games though, because 07 kind of established, it was almost like Saban coming in, marking his territory, hey, we're here. This shit's over. Guys, this is what it's going to be from now on. 08 was fun because it was up there and Alabama was having its first year of sustained success under Saban. Right. And to go up there and dominate the way they did that night and get old Fulmer out of there. That was his last game in the rivalry. So, this one for me was actually, I would go, it's number 3 worst case for me. It may be number 2. For me, the 0-2 game was such a big deal that even though it didn't continue for anything in the future, just in that given moment, it was a big deal for me personally. But man, 07 was big too. Because in 07, Bama fans thought there was a chance, but that was the first ass kicking Nick Saban laid on somebody. Because remember earlier that year, Bama snuck by Arkansas. They took Georgia to overtime.
Yeah, it was an onside kick.
State.
Start the game, and you had all those guys suspended, and that was really the end of that season. Because after that, we got in trouble, and things kind of went downhill because they lost all those guys with the textbooks, which we talked about with Baron Huber.
Yeah,
I think that the 2005 game, I'll never forget. That's the 6-3 win in Tuscaloosa. Tennessee and Alabama were both really good that year. I've never heard the place more electric. The worst one for me was when I realized that we needed to get Shula out of town, was when he blew that game in 2003 and they lost in 5 overtimes. Watching him mismanage that game from the sideline just showed you how inexperienced he was at the job. And to this day, I feel like they should have hired Sylvester Croom, who had head coaching experience, and I think would have been a better fit if you wanted to win football games. But I guess with everything else going on, they put Shula in there, and it was just a typical Shula game. You know, when the game was on the line, the guy made the wrong decision, and the team didn't win, and that was the worst one of them. Of the ones I can remember. And then 2009, I agree with you totally on that one. It was a sleeper. Alabama dominated the football game, but they just didn't put Tennessee away, and Tennessee came back and made it interesting. You know, I felt like 2015 was kind of like that too. Tennessee ended up with it was a 19-14 final. Our buddy Jay Coker was the quarterback. Derrick Henry ran over him, but they just didn't get it in the end zone until the end, and they had to come from behind. Yeah. And so when I look back at these games, just getting to the point, the one Saturday was as good as any of them.
It was. I'll also say, as you scroll through there and look, that 2016 game was fun as hell. Because that was Tennessee thinking they were going to back their way into something that year. Remember, that was they beat Texas A&M, I think it was late. They came from behind, beat them on the road. Maybe it was in overtime. I believe that was the same year they threw the Hail Mary to beat Georgia. After Georgia hit a Hail Mary, Tennessee comes down and hits a Hail Mary. And then it's this top 10 matchup. Everybody's all fired up. It's a rivalry again. The game means something. And Alabama just came in there and absolutely punched them right in the jaw. Just from the beginning, I want to say it was Ronnie Harrison with the pick six to start that game for the Tide. And then Jalen Hurts and the squad, I mean, they just ran all over them. So the 16 game was such a blowout. But, man, that was a good one, too, just because of what Tennessee fans thought they were going to be that year and some of the luck they had, and then what Alabama actually did to them.
And last year's game, obviously, to Tennessee fans, probably the greatest one of the entire rivalry. And, you know, to me, it was an exciting game, but I never felt like Alabama played their best. Yeah. I think we saw both teams' best Saturday. Maybe it was only a half for both teams. But it was in the first half. I don't know that Tennessee can play better football than that. And in the second half, I don't know that Alabama can play better football than that. And I guess in closing is that the SEC better not get rid of this. And I don't think they're going to, but it's not set in stone yet. You know, they could go where you have one permanent rival and then rotate. And if that's the case, they're making a big mistake. This game is it's finally getting back to where, you know, it feels like a rivalry. But you saw on there, we were in school where all that orange was, and Philip Fulmer basically just had teams that would run downhill on Alabama. And then Nick Saban did a very similar job as far as winning at the line of scrimmage, running the football, throwing the ball some, playing great defense. And then the last 2 years have been can't miss TV.
Yeah. I mean, also, just the intensity, you know, you said it the other day too, you know, on one of our shows or the post-game show, just look at the screen, Mick, just the crimson clashing with that god awful orange is it's a classic setup though, right? Like that is as old school and traditional college football that you can get. When the crimson clashes like that with that bright orange, as much as they may not like us and we may not like them, it is still one that you look at it and you're like, man, that right there is college football.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. You can't let that go, because you look at that and I instantly think October, cigars, stress, intensity, all the things, you know, and it's two great programs, and I really hope they keep it together.
Yep, I do too. Guys, tell me what you think. What was your favorite game in the rivalry? I'm sure Jay Barker would tell you it's when the deuce got loose to tie a game back in 1990? 93.
93, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. 17-17 maybe.
Yeah.
And
Legion Field.
At Legion Field, yeah, that was a classic. And then obviously Rocky Block and Rocky Stop. I mentioned those two, but this rivalry goes back 106 years. So there's a different generation that's thinking about other games and other players, and that's what makes this special. So tip of the cap to both sides, and let us know what you think your favorite game in this rivalry is and why, right here on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel.